We're going to go now to Dr. Ben Carson. He ran for president in the past year. He joins us right now live from Florida, I believe. Dr. Carson, what do you make of what happened in Dallas overnight?
Well, obviously, it's extraordinarily troublesome. And these people were ready, waiting for an opportunity. And it really should make us think about what is going to happen. You know, there are terror cells all over our country. There are professional agitators all over our country looking for opportunities. And these opportunities do arise. They will continue to arise because, you know, there are bad apples in the police force like there are bad apples in everything. They're bad surgeons. But the vast majority of surgeons are wonderful people. So, you know, these opportunities will continue to happen, and they will continue to do these things. But I guess the real issue is that, you know, the president's going to start saying, see, gun control, that solves the problem.
And we heard from the president already this morning, even bringing up gun control. Listen to this.
Yeah, and the
hold on, Dr.
gun
Carson,
control
we've got a soundbite.
Okay.
Undoubtedly about their twisted motivations, but let's be clear, there's no possible justification for these kinds of attacks or any violence against law enforcement. We also know that when people are armed with powerful weapons, unfortunately it makes attacks like these more deadly and more tragic. And in the days ahead, we're going to have to consider those realities as well.
Pardon the earlier interruption, Doctor. Is right now the time to get political?
Now is definitely not the time to get political. Now is the time to use logic and ask ourselves, why do we have a Constitution? Why do we have a Second Amendment? They're always saying you don't need a high-power weapon to hunt deer. The Constitution is not about deer hunting. It's about people being able to defend themselves from an overly aggressive government or an external invasion.
What would you say if you were president of the United States this morning to calm this nation? We've had a number of these big high-profile shootings over the past few weeks. Of course, in the past few days, the unrest across the country, these protests, police officers this morning having to put on their uniforms and go out and protect citizens all across this country. What would you say to a weary nation at this morning?
I would say I want you to understand that the police are a vital part of the stability of our nation. And I want you to imagine 24 or 48 hours with no police. What would your life be like? So yes, there are some bad apples, and yes, we will find ways to deal with them, but in no way do we indict the entire police force.
What would your message be as well? There are two sides of this. To the police community, as you said, that because of a few bad apples, they're painted with this bad brush. But also to the Black Lives Matter movement, who, as Clayton was mentioning earlier, were out there last night on the streets protesting peacefully. What is your message across the board to both groups that are obviously passionate about what happened last night?
My message would be that we, the American people, are not each other's enemies, but there are those who are trying to stir us up and create conflict for their own nefarious purposes, and we have to be smart enough not to allow them to succeed.
All right.
I understand why the Black Lives Matter people are upset, particularly about the Louisiana situation. But let's let the system play itself out, because there are a lot of people who are outraged about that.
Indeed, and there were a number of protests, simultaneous protests across the country. Unfortunately, the one in Dallas took a terrible turn, and 5 police officers dead this morning. Dr. Ben Carson, we thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure.